and I'll do my screen sharing. Yeah, so the final project is really going to be a um, culmination of all the things that you've learned in class. You're going to use the SAMR model. You're going to include some assistive technology, which is what we're going to go over tonight, as well as UDL principles. So you might want to look at that just so that you kind of know what's coming. I know each week we have smaller tasks for you to do. Hopefully, they're not feeling way too oppressive, but we're just trying to make sure that everybody is interacting with the different things that we're trying to teach in this class because it is um, kind of a combo class of technology, assistive technology, all of that kind of stuff into one class, and it can be a lot. So I was just telling my husband today, I was like, I don't know. It's crazy how quickly um, we have become dependent on technology because even just a few years ago, um, there were more paper, pencil, and textbooks and all those kind of things. And now education's really changed. Everything's changed, but education has really changed. And, the power goes out or um, the internet is down and we're all kind of at a loss because we've gotten to be so dependent on technology. So I know it's a lot of information and it is a lot of different kind of information, but I think it's good and I think it's really where education is moving. Even, college has become a lot of online learning. So hopefully it's not terribly overwhelming, Devin. If you ever have questions, feel free to email me or Dr. Constant. We're happy to answer questions. We don't want you to be overwhelmed by any of the assignments. None of them should be um, terribly overwhelming. So tonight, we're going to be talking about assistive technology. And I want to start with just talking about the difference between assistive technology and augmentative and alternative communication. So, assistive technology is all of those things that we put into place for our students so that they can access the general curriculum. That means that if they're using iPads or they're using single switches or smart boards, if they use voice, text to voice or voice to text, if they use um, pictures, symbols, anything like that is considered assistive technology. So we're helping us, the technology is assisting them in accessing the general education curriculum or the special education curriculum, depending on your student. AAC or augmentative and alternative communication is anything that we put into place for a student that requires them or that helps them, that helps them to communicate. So um, everybody's probably seen the kind of dynamic display voice output systems like Stephen Hawking has. Those are assistive, or I'm sorry, those are AAC. Those are augmentative and alternative communication. But it's not the only thing. Picture symbols that kids use for like a picture exchange system, um, sign language, um, single switches, multiple switches, all of those things are AAC. And so there is a distinct difference between assistive technology and AAC. So I kind of want to make sure um, you understand that going forward when we're talking about assistive technology. We're not necessarily talking about communication, although um, communication is an important part of assistive technology, and we do use that um, a lot. We use a lot of assistive technology for augmentative and alternative communication systems. So I'm just going to throw this question out there, and you guys can type in the text window, or you can turn on your microphones. What is the difference between high and low tech when you're talking about assistive technology? Anybody know? Probably a good question here is how many of you all have used assistive technology in your classrooms?
I'm gonna guess that like high tech would be something like um, eye gaze, using eye gaze to look at pictures, and the computer speaks for the person, and low tech would be something like switches.
Okay, yeah. So high tech would be something that would be have like dynamic display that would right, be more like an iPad or a Dynavox or something like that, where low tech is something that would be like a single switch, a picture symbol. Low tech can be as simple as a pencil grip that a student would use. It's not necessarily like technology, but it's still considered, an assistive technology kind of thing. So, um, I know I've said this a couple of times, dynamic display. Have you all ever heard of that or what that is? Good, Kayla. So you're already using some assistive technology. So dynamic display basically means that when you touch something, something else happens. So if you think about it from the perspective of an iPad or a smartphone or something like that, all of your apps have a represented, a symbol that represents what you're using. So, even if you look down here at my screen, I have all of these different symbols that mean something. And I know that when I click on this W that looks like a piece of paper, that goes to Word. That's what that is for. And so with dynamic display, basically what it is that symbols are um, are used and they're categorized. And for a lot of our students, categorizing can be a very complex skill. Symbolic representation can be a very complex skill. We have students in the MSD world that are working on, just kind of some object permanence that this is a ball. What is a ball? This is a ball. Touch the ball. So we're working on an object level. When you're looking at assistive technology for a student, you have to look at where they are at um, and where they're functioning. And so for a lot of our students, it's difficult to move them forward with that high tech assistive technology because they're not ready cognitively or they're just not ready. Um, they're they're just not ready for it yet, and that can become a real big issue sometimes with parents, because especially like when the iPad came out, how long has that been? Like 7 years ago. The iPad came out, and um, it was really touted as like, wow, this is going to make a huge difference for students. But there are a lot of things that they have to do in order to be able to access an iPad. Like they have to be able to isolate their finger, they have to be able to use symbols to represent something else. So there are a lot of skills that we have to teach going up to using more high tech assistive technology. So where we're supposed to start is way down at the bottom with picture cards and single switches and multiple switches. And I think and I just want to go because for the assistive technology matrix, I had you all go to the AbleNet website. It's going to give me an ad. But if you look at some of the technology that they have, um, switches. I'm going to show you some different switches. So you can have these very simple single switch. These switches right here, this big red, and I think these are, well, they're called spec switches. Those actually plug into a computer. So they plug into a computer program. You have to use something called shoot, just lost the word. Um, It's basically a little converter thing that you plug in to the computer, and that allows it to to work. It usually uses like a mouse click or a space bar, but that's what that is. And then there are things like this, which are wireless switches. Again, those are things that you use on the computer. I'm trying to get down to like a Big Mac. Um, so a switch kind of like this is still a wireless switch, but there are switches called Big Mac switches that I was kind of hoping to show you guys. Um, I wanted to show you the. All right, this is probably where we're going to go. Okay, so these are single message switches. This is something where I would push this big red button, and there's a button on the side, and I would say ball, and there would be a picture of a ball on it, and the student would touch it and it would say ball. So it's just a single switch. You put one message on it. A lot of times when you're doing like a reading lesson, you might put a repeated storyline on it, like um, in Where the Wild Things Are, you might put the line, Max is a wild thing. That's an assistive, that is an adapted version of that. So you would put a line on there that they would repeat. And that's how they would interact with that book, is by repeating a storyline. This is a step-by-step switch. So basically what it does is you can record single messages, but you can do them in like in a sequence. So I can have like 1, 2, 3, 4, and when they hit it the first time it says one, the second time it says 2, 3, 4. So that's kind of those single switches with very simple voice output. That's considered low tech technology. Higher tech would be something um, like the multiple switches. Let me go to a single multi-message. So still kind of in the low tech. These are bigger. I wanted one that was like a panel switch. They have panel switches which would have like 3 or 4 different boxes that you can put in one um, sorry. They changed this website enough that you're like still kind of trying to get to figure out where they have stuff. Let me see if I'm on this next page. Nope. Um, So basically, it would be a panel switch where it would have like 4 to 8, sometimes up to like 32. Let me just do like, and this is a different website probably, but you can kind of see here. So this switch has 4 different panels, and you can put different messages on each of them. If you were going to be working with a student on eating, you might have like chicken nuggets in one panel, French fry in one panel, milk in one panel, fruit in one panel, or whatever they're eating, and then you would have them touch, and it gives a voice output when they do that. So that's another kind of low tech device that we use for assistive technology. Um, to go back to some of the more dynamic display, just because I think dynamic display. So you can kind of see this. It looks like, let me see if I can blow it up enough. You can kind of see that this is like an iPad or something along those lines, and it has different, this is like the worst image ever. Um, but it has different categories, and the student would go through and they would touch something and it would open up another category. So they would go to food, it would open up another category that might have like meat, vegetable, fruit, and then they would touch fruit and it would open up and you'd have apples, bananas, something like that. So it's dynamic, it's moving, you can add to it, you can change it, versus a static display, which is what those others were, those single switches. Right. So Proloquo to Go is an app that you can use on your iPad. Can you use eye gaze? So there are certain uh, uh, um, devices that, yeah, you can use eye gaze on. What it generally is like if you had a Dynavox, which is something that, and even an iPad can do it. Or that's actually one of the great things about iPads is if you look how much this is, $3,495. Even the most expensive iPad doesn't cost that, and Proloquo to Go costs $200, which is a lot for an app. But when you're comparing it to, $3,500 for this device, it's really not that bad. But um, yes, they have eye gaze. They use the webcam, and there are on most computers now there are assistive uh, technology that allows you to use your webcam for eye gaze. It's actually pretty difficult. Um, if you ever have tried it, it's actually kind of difficult to use eye gaze. It's very fatiguing as well. So a lot of times when we're working with students on that, um, we have to know that they have a pretty consistent eye gaze, and we need to know that they are not going to fatigue. Um, the other thing that's really hard with eye gaze and using devices like this um, is that there's really no way to um, uh, like prompt for an eye gaze. Like I can't use a physical prompt to have a student look in the direction I want. I mean, you might be able to kind of prompt using their head, but you can't make them look in one section. So it's kind of hard when you're looking at error correction. Right. And so that kind of goes in. So Devin says we had an adult client who was nonverbal, who used one and it worked really well for her. Um, but they had to do a lot of extra work to program it. Programming it is really the hardest part because when you're thinking about assistive technology, AAC, um, you have to program it for another person. You are giving them their voice. If it's a communication system, you're giving them their voice. So you need to have things on there that they want to say. And so there's a lot of debate about, if you have a client or a student, not a student, because that's a little different, but say you have an adult client who needs to use AAC, and in their normal way of speaking, they use a lot of curse words. Well, technically, we should probably program those into their device because that is part of their speaking pattern. That is something that they do. So we want to make sure that we are replicating something that's authentic for them. Um, I always kind of use Stephen Hawking as an example because I think it's almost an unfair example because he's very, very proficient. He uses something, the last I heard, I need to go back and do some more research. He was using something that sensed his eyebrow. He can move his eyebrows up and down. He used to have a sip, it's called like sip and puff, I think, where you like breathe in and out using it. And I think he's lost his ability to do that. So he's just using an eyebrow, which if you think about how proficient he is with his AAC device and using just his eyebrow, um, that's amazing. But intellectually, we know that Stephen Hawking was able to communicate and lost the ability because of his body. So it's difficult sometimes when you're working with children who are nonverbal because if you don't know where they're at cognitively, um, it's difficult to teach that. If they can't read, you're not going to be able to set up something that uses words or an alphabet system. So you're really working at the very bottom level and trying to work them up to something like a dynamic display. So I guess the point of all of this is to kind of say when you're using assistive technology, you kind of have to meet your students where they're at. If they're not ready to use a computer, you really can't use a computer. You need to start with some of the really low tech stuff like picture cards um, and work up. Have you guys ever seen like board maker or symbol sticks or anything like that for a picture library? All right. So I don't have board maker on my computer, but I do have symbol sticks. So I'm going to log into that to show you guys. Um, uh-oh, don't do this to me. Let me see if I click on symbol sticks prime, if it'll log in. Ah, let me pull something up that I can kind of show you might have symbol sticks on it. Shoot, I know. Everything is cloud-based now, so all right, so here's an example of like a picture symbol that you might use. Now these are pretty high tech or higher level, um, but it's basically just a picture of whatever it is. In this case, it's a manatee, um, and there's the word above it. And typically, you would use it for um, either like this is actually for a sight word. Um, But let's just pretend that your student had a favorite manatee toy that they like to play with. You could give them this picture. You would have them hand it to you, and then you would give them the manatee. So that would be their way of requesting that toy that they want. So that's kind of the idea behind like a picture exchange system, and that's considered a fairly low tech, but it's PEX. Um, and PEX is a very specific system and it has very specific rules that you follow. Um, so um, it doesn't refer to every picture symbol. So that's why I'm trying to say just a picture exchange because PEX is very specific and you don't want to get on that.
How do you spell PEX?
Like she did PECS, all capital, because it stands for Picture Exchange Communication System. Somebody's mowing their lawn outside. Um, yeah, I actually think Proloquo to Go was such a great, that was really great uh, for our students because it really gave them a much cheaper, um, way of accessing. I don't know what is going on with um, my Moodle. Just my home page. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. I just wanted to go back to my assistive technology, so I'm making sure I cover what I wanted to talk about tonight. So we kind of talked about this. Assistive technology is to enhance learning and instruction. The difference between AAC, when is assistive technology appropriate? So we didn't really talk about that, but when is assistive technology appropriate for a student? What and base and actually after hearing the UDL from last week, what do you guys think? When do you think it's appropriate to use AAC? All right, so when a student can't speak or write by themselves, that's absolutely. One thing that's really important, right, so anytime a student needs it, you can use assistive technology. One thing that's really important to understand and to keep in mind when you're using assistive technology, especially more in a gen ed setting, is that we want to make sure that if our students are dependent on that assistive technology to be able to complete an assignment or complete a test, that we either have a 504 or an IEP that will allow them to use that, because we don't want them to work with a audio text all semester, and then when they take the test, we have to take it away from them. If that's what they need, we need to make sure that we're doing that. I Abigail, I think that's a really good point. I think using it as a scaffolding method can be really a great way for working with students that might be struggling, but maybe they don't have it on an IEP or a 504 or something like that, but they're struggling, and we can kind of use that. One thing that I always say about assistive technology too is that, you know, we all have certain things that we do. I remember when I was in school, they would say, you know, you have to learn how to do multiplication without a calculator because you're not all going to be walking around with calculators for the rest of your life. Well, that was a lie. It wasn't really a lie. It was a misdirection. I don't know. But we all have calculators on our phones now, and we carry them around with us everywhere we go. And so sometimes teaching kids to use assistive technology that is available to them can be really powerful. I know the other thing that was really great about iPod touches and iPhones and um, iPads, and same with the like the PC version of that, but now all of a sudden our kids look appropriate. If I see a student walking through the hallway with an iPad, I don't immediately think that they are a special needs student. I would just think that they have an iPad. But before, when they had a 7-pound Dynavox that they were carrying around, there was a little bit of, you know, they stood out. You could tell that they were using assistive technology. But it has gotten so good. It People think nothing of seeing somebody um, sitting and typing into their phone or their iPad. It's part of our everyday life, and so I think it's great that we're we're using it more, and so it's becoming more mainstream for our students as well, because we all kind of use certain things. I mean, like, I don't know, even just like when you used to say, "Who's that person in that movie? Where have I seen him before?" Well, now we can look it up. Before we had to rely on our memory, but now we can look all that up. So I think that I think that it's becoming more and more mainstream. So, um, all right. So the next question is, how do you choose devices for your student? And we talked about that. You want to make sure you know that they have a certain skill set. If you're using um, picture symbols, how are you going to have them access it? Do you want them to look at it using eye gaze? Do you want them to touch it? Do you want them to pick it up and hand it to you? Do you want them to pick it up off of a piece of Velcro and put it on another piece of Velcro? Do you want them to go across the room and get it and bring it to you? How do you want them to access that picture symbol? When you're thinking about higher tech, can they isolate their finger? Can they categorize? Do they know how to turn things on? I mean, I would say kids are now starting to get iPads and iPhones and that kind of stuff from really early ages. I mean, you can see a 2-year-old playing with an iPad and they know exactly how to get into it and use it. So those are skills that we may have to teach our students, but they're being exposed to it at much earlier ages. So, let me go through here. So, one really good tool that's on here, and it's from the University of Kentucky, and it is an assessment tool for evaluating your students so that you can see, let's see, is this it? I thought that was it. I think both of these websites have assessment tools that you can open. That's not it. This one was a pretty good one. I just need to make sure I have the right. So on this there are tools for assessing your student. You can see, well, I'm wondering if now they're charging for them when they used to be free. So basically, the way that you assess assistive technology is you kind of give them opportunities to use different technology. You see what they can do, and you kind of meet them where they're at. You don't necessarily want an assistive technology tool that they aren't able to access. So you're kind of going where they're at and trying to assess them where they are. All right. Are there any questions about assistive technology or AAC, any of it that we've talked about? All right. So
Actually, I do have a question.
okay.
Oh, about the what exactly do we do the 18 module Dropbox? I think you addressed that last week, but I forgot.
All you need to do, you will go to the assistive technology assistive technology internet modules. You do have to make an account, but it's free. And then you just have to go to the AT for school age and pick one of the modules that you would like to do. Go through the module. If you open them up, you can kind of see they follow a pretty specific pattern. They have different, there's a pre-assessment objectives. They go through when you get to the post assessment, you can take a screenshot. I think it might even let you download it, and then you put the post assessment into the Dropbox that's on Moodle. So really, it's kind of a choose your own adventure module, just because I couldn't really decide which one I thought would be the best, and I figured you guys could pick. And then with the assistive technology matrix, what you're doing is you're going to this AbleNet website and you look under the technology tab and click the subtopics, and you're picking products, and you're just kind of giving a short description of them. the price and its intended use. And part of the reason I wanted to make this an assignment is because a lot of this is very expensive. Um, and I kind of want you to see what all is out there because there's so much now in assistive technology. I do not mind in the description section if you just cut and paste. That's fine. I just want to make sure that you kind of go and look at it and see what's out there. Do you guys have any other questions about any of the assignments, anything that we've done up until now? All right. Well, if you have questions, you're free to ask them now, or if Devin, if you think of something later, you can email me as well. I don't mind answering emails or texts, or if you need to call me, you can call me. Good. We were kind of trying to make sure that they were informative, but we didn't want them to get too long and be too lectury. So the MAST module, um, that's under assistive technology. It's actually not an assignment. It is just a resource. You don't have to do any of them. But there is a UDL MAST module if you'd like to go through them, and they're really good resources for special education. So it was more of just a resource. Probably should put that on there. I just knew like when I started doing the UDL, I was like, if I put everything on here that I want to put on here, it's just going to be too overwhelming. So I figured I'd just put a few resources too. What did you guys who've done it, what'd you think of the UDL project? Good. I was hoping it would be something that's fun, but also kind of give you an idea of how you learn. Oh no. So was the was the project a pain or was making a bridal veil a pain? Making the veil. Aw, that's too bad. If you make it if you make a simple one, it shouldn't be too bad. Oh, so the task that you did wasn't fun, but that's not the assignment's fault. Yvonne, I agree with that. I think that you know, I noticed when I was going through and grading them, some people had done a like a recipe, and they said, well, when I'm doing a recipe, I work better from written instructions, but when I'm doing other things, I need a video. And I was thinking about that, and that's true. There are certain things that you learn how to do a certain way, and that's how you do it. Like I'm the same way. I mean, there are times that I've used a video to make a recipe, but um, typically I'm looking at the written instructions while I'm cooking, but I've watched the video ahead of time. So it is interesting how you can have you yourself might have a variety of styles. All right. Any other questions before I turn you guys free for the evening? I turn the recording off.